Hi, this is Rabbi Tzvi Mandel of Congregation Kalbnei Yisrael, a community of Jewish friends, and we will continue with a beautiful story of the great Tzaddik Rabbi Nachum Mendel of Kosovo. The Holy Kosovo, as is known, he was a very big, huge Torah scholar, Talmud Chacham, who knew the whole Torah backwards and forwards, the revealed and the hidden Torah. Even as a young man, he was also an open Bal Ruach HaKodesh prophecy, and blessings under him were rampant and always happened just as he would bless the people. So as a young man, he was a chassid of the great Reb Feivish of Zavars, and he was also a pauper, studying day and night. And so he once wanted to go for a Shabbos to his Rebbe, the great Reb Feivish of Zabaras. So he started walking, as people did those days. People could walk for days, weeks, sometimes months. And it was a Thursday, and he finally came not far from where he was heading towards. And here it's night, and he hadn't eaten all day, and he sees not far there's an inn. So he decided that he'll try his luck, so to say, and we don't have any luck, but we'll try to see whether Hashem will find him a place to be overnight and maybe a hot meal, and knocks on the door, and the innkeeper opens the door and says, welcome, welcome. I can give you a warm bed, but I have nothing to eat. In fact, my little ones haven't eaten all day. They're famished. Plus, I haven't paid the rent, and here it's the middle of the month already, and God forbid, if I don't pay in the next couple of days, myself and my family will be thrown into the dungeon, as was done very often by the cruel landowners of those days, especially if the innkeeper was a Jew. Reb Mendel was so broken. He prayed the evening service and went to sleep, studied a little, went to sleep, but couldn't sleep all night. After what he heard from the innkeeper in such a matter-of-fact way, he was just broken. And so in the morning, he prays the morning service and studies a little bit and goes along his way and blesses this poor innkeeper who did this great mitzvah for him and gave him a warm bed at least. God should bless you. You should have a prosperous business, and you shouldn't be Nebuchadnezzar, the poor tsaris that you are and the problems that you are. You're a wonderful person, I see. And he leaves. Starts on his way, and before he gets too far, a fancy wagon pulls over. Young man, where are you heading? And he says, I'm heading for the Rebbe in Zabaras, and he says, I'm heading the same way, please. I'll move over and come up on the coach. He says, I'll be happy to allow you to do the great mitzvah of Achnasas Archim, of allowing guests on your wagon. But before that, I need 20 gold coins from you. And the guy says, listen to me, young man, I'm doing you a favor. I got to pay for it also. I mean, I don't mind doing mitzvahs, and it's a great thing to do mitzvahs, but how does a young man have the audacity? And don't forget, many times, the Chazal tell us that to grow spiritually, sometimes we have to have audacity. We have to have gaiva dikdusha. We even have to have chutzpah dikdusha. Right time, right place, of course. Anyway, he says, young man, I see you're a fine young man. You look like a very fine person. I'll give you a nice donation, 20 gold pieces. And he says, I'm not moving from here until you give me 20 gold pieces. Okay, this guy sees it's not a simple young man, so he moves over and tells the wagon driver to allow him to come onto the wagon, and he gives him 20 gold pieces. And before they could start going, the young man says to him, okay, so these 20 gold pieces not only will do good for you because you'll be doing a great mitzvah of charity, but it'll do good for you too in the long run. And the guy says to him, oh, interesting, huh? Okay. And he's ready to tell the wagon driver to hit the horses. We'll go to Zabaras to the Rebbe, while this young man says, but I have another mitzvah for you to do. How about telling them to turn around? We'll go back to the inn that I was just in, and you'll see what a great mitzvah you're doing. He says, fine. If that's part of the mitzvah, you have to do a mitzvah b'shleimus, a whole mitzvah, not a half a mitzvah. So let's go back and we'll give the poor man his money. Sure enough, they go back and they come in, and the innkeeper was happy to see him again, and he gives him the 20 gold pieces, and he tells him, sir, first of all, you go in town and buy a stack of the best vodka, stock up on the best vodka so that you could have new customers, and you shouldn't be starving, and your family shouldn't be starving like you've been till now. And then you could make enough money to pay the landowner so you won't get thrown into the dungeon with your family. And to the wagon driver, he says, why don't you tell your coachman to go to the nearest grocery or whatever it was of those days and stock up on some good breakfast so the little ones should have what to eat. They haven't eaten in who knows how many days. And we'll join them also. And perhaps a little bit extra so they could have for Shabbos. And the kind wagon driver, the owner of the wagon, this rich man, was very kind. And not only did he tell the wagon driver to bring all those, but also they had already to eat for Shabbos, and they had some extra so that they could take it along. Rabbi Nachum Mendel and his wagon driver could have food on the way to going to Reb Feivish in Zabaras. They say goodbye, and the innkeeper, as he was saying goodbye to Rabbi Nachum Mendel of Kosov, the young man, he bends over to him and tells him in his ear, don't worry about it, God's going to help you, you're going to be a rich man. From now on, everything is going to go good for you. But don't forget, this rich man who drove me here, his business is going to go lower and lower. He's going to become a poor man. And one day, you'll have the great, great mitzvah after many years to repay back chesed for a chesed, kindness for a kindness. So you'll be able to put him back on his feet so that he can become a rich man like he was before, and see he's a wonderful man. You see the mitzvahs he's doing. And the guy says, okay, I take it upon myself. And they say goodbye. Rabbi Nachum Mendel Kosovo, the young man, gets onto the coach together with his driver, and they go to Zabaras for Shabbos. They finally come to Zabaras. Of course, the shul was packed with Chassidim. They could barely get in and pushing their way through. And they hear a voice from the front, the great Reb Feivish of Kosov, with his open Ruach HaKodesh, his open prophecy, says, allow the young man and his friend who just did an unbelievable great mitzvah to come up front. I want to speak to him. And all the Chassidim split like the splitting of the sea. And he goes up. And of course, the Kosovo didn't take the credit for himself. He says, yes, this man here just saved the whole family from starving to death. Plus, he also helped them so that the landowners shouldn't throw them all in the dungeon. And we're all familiar that these things happen these days. And Reb Feivish calls over Reb Mendel and says, and did you also tell him, the innkeeper, that after he becomes rich one day, he'll be able to pay him back? He says, yes. And did he accept it upon himself? He said, yes. Well, they had a great Shabbos by the Rebbe. It was very beautiful. And the rich wagon owner was happy to drive Reb Menachem Mendel Kosovo back to his neighborhood, which wasn't far from where he lived. Time goes by, and obviously everything became true. This rich man's business, sadly enough, got worse and worse, and the innkeeper became a rich man. Years go by, decades, and the great Rebbe Menachem Mendel Kosover became the great Kosover Rebbe that we all know of. And the former rich man, the former wagon driver, was so destitute that he had to go around with other beggars to beg Jews for food or for money, whatever. And one day, he's going with his friends, and they happen to come to Kosov, where Rebbe Menachem Mendel was the big Rebbe. He didn't remember Rebbe Mendel. They came to the Kosov to collect some money and to have a meal, perhaps, and a place to sleep. And right away, the Kosovo Rebbe remembered him, though he didn't remember Rebbe Mendel Kosovo. And the Kosovo Rebbe calls him over and says, "Sir, you don't have to stay here with the rest of these people, but I'm going to write you a letter, and you go to this in this town, and you'll see this person that I'm writing the letter to, and he'll take care of you." It was a little strange to him, but being that everybody knew that the great Rebbe Mendel Kosovo was open Baruch HaKodesh, open prophet in open prophecy, so he trusted him, and he said, "Yes, Rebbe, I'll listen to you." And he starts walking back by himself to that inn, which he didn't even remember about, and the inn now looked much more beautiful. Of course, it was built up more because he was a rich man now, and he put a lot of money into it. Comes in, and the innkeeper remembered the wagon driver, but the wagon driver didn't remember him. And after he gives him a hot meal, he says, "You have a letter for me, don't you, from the Refavish Zabaraza?" So he says, "Yes, I forgot. How do you know I have a letter?" He doesn't have prophecy. So he says, "Because last night, he's my Rebbe also, and the great Refavish Zabaraza came to me in a dream and said the time has finally come that you could pay back kindness for the kindness that was done to you. So I understand that you're the former rich man and wagon driver, and I'll be more than happy to do whatever I can for you." And finally, he smiled for the first time in who knows how long, because he had such a troubled life the last couple of tens of years. And he said, "We'll go together to the great Refavish Zabaraza, but let me first count up and make a reckoning of what I have and how much money I make and how much my business is worth, so that I could give an honest amount of money to the Rebbe, so that he could decide how we split it." And we don't know the end of the story, but he became a rich man, and he was a rich man, and thank Hashem. It's a beautiful story that Rab Zevin brings down in his book.